Hello, everyone. My name is Suzzan, and my husband Craig and I are the founders of our charity, the I.D.E.A Foundation for the Benefit of Humanity. And in this video, I want to share where the seeds of compassion originated from. The interesting thing is that it is the culmination of multiple ceremonies and spiritual movements since 2000. But primarily it began with us preparing for the Global Peace Initiative on November 11, 2011. So I will take a moment to encapsulate those key events. After being sent to perform ceremonies at sacred sites in Mexico in May of 2000, we were instructed to take over a metaphysical bookstore and turn it into a spiritual center called the Seven Keys Millennium Awakening Center, 777 Center for short. Later that year, we were sent to perform spiritual ceremonies in Peru and Bolivia in South America. Over the 5 years we had the center, it provided a venue to hold meetings and spiritual ceremonies, as well as connect with several people who became lifelong friends. When in 2005 we closed the center, we shifted those ceremonies to our home because we felt a strong spiritual, energetic connection to the house. Perhaps because it was where I was guided daily in my investigation of tracking spiritual evolution. In the spring of 2011, we reached out to connect with 36 partners in peace that we displayed on 3 trees representing the past, present, and future. Interestingly, most of these partners are no longer active, but it doesn't matter because their connection served its purpose for that time. Along with the 3 trees, we created an interactive map to place the location of the sites around the world holding the November 11th peace ceremonies. Late October in 2011, we learned that our dear friend Leland was going to Sun Island on Lake Titicaca in Bolivia for one of the peace ceremonies. This seemed serendipitous because we had been at the exact location 11 years earlier to perform our own ceremony. A week before Leland was due to leave, he visited us and shared that he was taking 6 sacred stones a native shaman had gifted him. After talking with him about his trip, since he was planning to use the stones in the ceremony, he was moved to leave them at our house overnight, where we placed them over what we had come to believe was an energy vortex. Following the success of the 2011 Global Peace Initiative, we began adding people's names to the map representing lights of hope. This continued into 2012 with the invaluable help from Curtis, resulting in us acquiring 155,000 plus names representing every country in the world by December 21st. A short while later, we sealed the map encapsulating that energy of peace on the Bridge to Peace Project website. From 2012, we continued to develop the Know Thyself initiative, which we had launched on June 21st, 2008. As well as writing for KTI, I continued with my guided research for the treatise on spiritual evolution. Consequently, our focus shifted away from ceremonies. For years later, we arrive at the fateful year of 2020, with the COVID pandemic disrupting all of our lives. Because this coincided with the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement, highlighting the terrible injustices inflicted on the African American community. There was a great awakening of people realizing what had been happening under their noses for over a century. Throughout the world, despite the global pandemic, over the summer months of 2020, people risked their health to protest injustice and inequality. Consequently, energetically 2020 became the stimulus to change, and as the impetus was global in nature, it acted as a turning point for the mass consciousness. Watching so many people from every background marching in unity inspired our next project, the 2020 Revision Movement. Initially, we thought the movement would be a part of the growing global awakening, calling us to redress the injustices in the world, particularly the treatment of African Americans. And since there seemed to be a desire to demonstrate support by removing monuments, statues, and references that glorified the Confederacy, such as the group Lady Antebellum changing their name to I.D.E.A, and the removal of over 160 symbols of the Confederacy, including statues of General Robert E. Lee, it seemed to confirm that assessment. Tragically, in spite of such a powerful nationwide drive to redress injustice on all levels, this locomotive was derailed. Some would say it was political because the John Lewis Voting Rights Act was blocked in the Senate after passing in the House on August 24, 2021. Regardless of the reason, it was halted. Seeing the slowing of calls to redress injustice, we realized that the 2020 revision movement must mean something other than a grassroots movement calling for change. Therefore, we examined the deeper meaning of the name. Logically, revision obviously meant to take another look with clear, or rather objective vision. But look at what? Then I remembered the treatise on spiritual evolution, America's Hijacked Destiny, published 2 years earlier as a study guide for the Know Thyself initiative. It made sense because this treatise addresses the cause of the injustice, persecution, and suffering in the world. Consequently, we knew it was time to share this information with the teachers who were born to use the knowledge in the divine universal plan. Considering that 100% of the royalties for the treatise were also going to charity, seemed an added bonus. Speaking of the divine universal plan, there was another unforeseen consequence of the call for justice and equality for all in 2020, because it provided the incentive for the divine forces to correct the Watcher's mistake, which unbeknownst to us was going to take place in our home. Yet even that was not simple, because like so many times in the past 30 years, it involved several bizarre and seemingly disconnected instructions. Case in point, it began with being told to ask our dear friend Guy to bring over his painting of Solomon to hang in our lounge. Then Craig was inspired to purchase several crystals to be placed on a teak altar. Another aspect involved Guy being moved to ask our friend Dan to bring him a flute back from Arizona for the ceremony. None of us knew the plan. We just kept following our guidance. The only thing we knew was that it was to take place on December 21st, 2021. Since the details are fully explained in the Divine Plan page, I will only add that a component of the plan needed us all to believe that December 21st, 2012 was the relevant date, when in fact its mirror image of December 21st, 2021 was a far more important date. And so we come to the Seeds of Compassion movement. I had been running the KTI forum for 6 months when I was led to Wandera. As Craig said, we were both so impressed with his selflessness in dedicating his life to 40 orphans that we were compelled to help him become self-sufficient in his hen project, as well as build a new orphanage on his own land. Long story short, it was connecting with this remarkable young man that was the catalyst for the 2020 revision movement to transform into the Seeds of Compassion, because he gave as a focal point for the movement. We have always known that the way to end suffering and heal the world starts and ends with the children. I used to wonder why one of my favorite human beings, the Dalai Lama, always focuses on compassion, until I realized that the act of compassion is how we express selfless or altruistic love. In other words, compassion is the answer to healing and transforming this world. As His Holiness teaches children in his book, The Seed of Compassion, we all have this seed within us. We just need to nurture it. And so, connecting everything that had transpired since the Global Peace Initiative of November 11, 2011, we can see how each step has led to this next phase in our mission. As stated, the 2020 revision movement was inspired by the Black Lives Matter uniting the world and calling for justice, which unfortunately petered out within a year. However, recounting my guided journey recorded in the treatise in the forum showed us that to understand how we got where we are today, we need to go back to the beginning to find the source for the injustice. The truth is that no one can argue that the Western nations exploited the third world countries for centuries, especially Africa. Anthropologists tell us that East Africa is where the first hominids appeared. So, as Uganda is in East Africa, then we could see it as the cradle of humanity. The Western nations' treatment of the African people has resulted in so much anger and resentment throughout the continent that we need to generate forgiveness. Starting where our species began, sends a powerful message of intent to right the far too many wrongs perpetrated on the African people. Yet, The human race's origin isn't the only reason we are focusing the seeds of compassion on Uganda. It is because the country is also at the center of the struggle to protect endangered species from extinction. Windy National Park in southwestern Uganda is home to approximately 500 mountain gorillas, nearly half of the world's population. In addition, Uganda is home to 8 other endangered species, including the African elephant, lion, leopard, and chimpanzee. Considering that the last on the list of 9 endangered species is our closest relative in the animal world, I could see why building an orphanage in Uganda was ground zero in the divine universal plan at this time. The method in the plan is sublimely simple because it floods the region with compassion, which again is how we express the highest form of altruistic love, the real transformative power in the words, God is love. Therefore, like our map sealed the energy of 155,000 loving people identifying themselves as lights of hope, now these lights can become the energy for the seeds of compassion register. Knowing that the original map was specifically created for the 11-11-11 worldwide event to generate peace, we know the seeds of compassion on a new map registering the beautiful souls committed to the children of the world will have even more power. One more point, the amount of $35,000 needed to build the new orphanage would seem impossible without a wealthy benefactor. But then this seemingly impossible task was faced over 200 years ago in raising the funds for a pedestal for the Statue of Liberty. When the committee appointed to raise the funds could only come up with $3,000, Joseph Pulitzer, the publisher of the New York World newspaper, was inspired to help. As a result, he printed an announcement in his paper of a drive to raise $100,000, well over $2 million today, for the pedestal. Due to his position as the publisher, he pledged to print the name of every donor, irrespective of the amount donated. As a result, Pulitzer announced in the New York World that $102,000 had been raised from 120,000 donors, and that 80% of the total had been received in sums of less than $1. Likewise, each donor, irrespective of the amount donated, will have their name placed on the map. In addition, I.D.E.A pledges to include every donor's name in the Register of Compassion, as well as any message explaining the reason for the donation at the orphanage. By raising the funds in this way, we increase the energy of compassion exponentially. An important point to understand is that this movement will not stop with I.D.E.A's orphanage. As a director of our charity, the I.D.E.A Foundation for the Benefit of Humanity, I.D.E.A will spearhead the Seeds of Compassion movement, reaching out to other charitable organizations first in Uganda, then throughout Africa. It is our intention to start a worldwide movement to end children's suffering, as well as save the endangered species. By flooding all the poverty areas with seeds of compassion, in the form of loving, caring people, it will show the people of Africa and beyond that they are not forgotten, and we are there to support them as they protect one another as well as endangered species. We greatly appreciate all of your support and kindness, and we want to thank you for caring as we move forward united in a vision to change the world.